How about if we just, I'll edit it for you. We'll just take that out, okay?
All right, I just started the recording again. I'll walk through it. So this is today's March 7th. It's the CalExit Congress. We have a lot of special guests here. Pep Pablo from the Catalonia Independence, Miyamoto is going to be talking about a cultural educational video for kids, talking about how California is separated from America. We're going to get right into the agenda. Let me cover that for a few minutes, and then we'll start presentations. Pep, you'll go first, and then Hannah second. So I'll do an introduction to about 11:10, actually probably 11:20. We'll have presentations to about 12, and then the work of Congress starts at 12 to 12:30, and of course, the public can speak at 12:30 to 1. So let me do share screen, and we are posting up all of our information here at the CalExit Congress Forum. The CalExit Congress was recently announced here at Yes California on our Facebook page. It's also on the Yes California website. CalExit Congress is now here with the new mission statement approved by the Congress, explaining what we're doing, one of the first projects, and a link to the CalExit Congress website. We additionally advertised it on Twitter, as you can see here. And finally, taking you back to the Congress Forum. So we also sent out a mass email. This is the mass email that went out, kind of a reflection of the Facebook post, literally. So what I wanted to show everybody was there's a mass email to 100,000 people. There's Twitter to about 20,000, Facebook to about 40,000. So we really advertised the Congress this week to about 160,000 Californians. Getting right into it. The agenda for today I posted here in the CalExit Congress Forum, which the public can view. So Congress members can add information, but all of this is available to the public to watch and read. So let's go, here's the agenda, Congress Forum, Congress statements from the President. We're gonna go to the agenda. And I'm just showing you this to show the forums here. All of our agendas and information are here. Here's a link to the show, etc. Here's a link to the commercial. Let me see if I can actually get that running. You know what, I'm not even gonna screw with that again. That was not good. Okay, housekeeping by the President. We need to show the current and future agenda on the forum. We're doing that right now. We also need to show the benchmarks and remind people that we are now proposing resolutions and allocating funding. So we are starting with this Sunday conference today. We're going to have a couple of resolutions proposed. The Yes California CalExit Congress will be identifying issues in international spheres or domestic spheres, taking a stance on them, and then issuing a resolution in the United Nations format that will speak on behalf of all of Yes California and be posted in the widest possible manner. So Congress is going to start making resolutions. The other thing is that we're starting with a pot of $500. I know it's not a ton, but we do have a 501c3, C4 coming on, and there will be a lot of money coming with that. I wanted to get Congress in the habit of allocating funds. So this Sunday, today, we're announcing to everybody that you can start requesting in any presentation funds from the Congress. Additionally, Congress members can make presentations and ask for allocation of funds from the Congress. So we have the Congress website up. We have the form for all of the business going on. I just showed you how we're using the form. Additionally, this today is our main event, and we're covering the agenda right now and some of the benchmarks. I also just announced, Yes, California made its announcement of the Congress to 160,000 people today, and we're starting resolutions, and we have a forum up, and we're allocating funds all today. Presentations for today are going to be Catalonia secession representative Pep Pablo. We'll also have a presentation on how to mobilize education on California history and how it was forced to become a state by the American government in order to build cultural separation with America and establish a legal front for CalExit based upon a modern understanding of the law, with a special guest promoter, Hannah Miyamoto. We're also going to be talking about the 3 resolutions to consider today. Congress will approve them or not. One is talking about how the relief checks were not good enough for Californians. The other was talking about how the current administration supports children in cages like the previous administration, and also that the court system at the federal level strikes down Californians' abilities to protect ourselves at 12 to 12:30. We're going to talk about the committees that were just launched. The Rules Committee, headed by Christine Howard Schmaui, and also the Professional Culture Committee, created by Christine. They're now meeting Mondays at 7 p.m. Tuesdays at 7 p.m. is the Domestic Issues Committee, headed by Jason. Wednesdays at 7 p.m. is the International Issues Committee, headed by Robert Stark. And finally, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. is the Finance Committee, headed by me. We have a Judiciary Committee, they will meet ad hoc, and we have a few more committees that we'll get to. So we're going to get into all of those presentations on Catalonia and California history, and then we'll have some congressional votes. I think you've all seen that. Let me end the screen sharing. I'd like to turn it over to Pep Pablo. Pep, thanks for coming out today. Pep Pablo is a member of the Catalonia independence movement. I've known him for a few years. The CALEXIT Congress is interested in reaching out to independence movements around the world that are dedicated to peaceful independence. And let me turn it over to you, Pep. Could you explain to us in about 5 minutes what the Catalonia independence movement is and why everyone should support it? And then I'm sure there will be questions to you from the CALEXIT Congress. So Pep, let me shut my mouth for a minute and turn these things on.
Okay.
And if you would give me your wisdom so I can learn. Pep Pablo of the Catalonia independence movement. Sir, what's going on? What is that movement about? Why should we here, Californians, support Catalonians, in your opinion, sir?
Okay, well, let's start. I will be no very long speaking. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to the Congress. And sorry if my English sometimes it's a little problematic. I speak English, but sometimes I make mistakes. I've been a very long time without speaking it, so maybe I make mistakes when I speak. Well, for Californians, many times Spain, people from Spain, everybody the same. But you must know that in Spain, there are very, very different nations, especially two, the Basque country and the Catalonians. Maybe you know the Basque country because they fought against Spain that used the terrorism. They killed more than 800 people for many years. They stopped killing, and right now they are fighting the same way we are doing here in Catalonia, which is peaceful and trying to combine the rest of Spain and the government that we want to be independent. We Catalonians have been trying to write our own story for more than 300 years. It's been a lot of time of disagreements with Spain. We have had peace, we have had war, but we want to be free from Spain. It's been a long, long fight. This feeling was for many years pushed down by the dictatorship of Franco, as you can remember, but after the death of the dictator in the 1975, this movement could grow again. We were really pressed very hard during the dictatorship. People were sent to jail, and it was almost impossible to speak even our language. You know that in Catalonia, we speak a different language, which is not Spanish. We speak Catalan. And right now, we could say that more than 80% of Catalan people is wishing to have a referendum to decide our future. This doesn't mean that everybody in Catalonia is independent. In the last elections, which happened 3 weeks ago, 51% of people voted for independent parties. This is the first problem. We have at least 6 independent parties presenting to the elections. It means that the first problem is that we are not united enough to decide only one way to reach the future. What is the problem too? We must combine the other half of people in Catalonia, many from different parts of Spain, who came as immigrants in the 60s, that being independent will be also a great difference from now. What is the difference? Maybe you know that in Catalonia, we sent our taxes to Madrid, the tax to Madrid, and they give back as a return only the 40% of what we send there. This is just a problem because sometimes we cannot have many of the advantages the other countries in Spain have. You know that here in Spain, for example, the health is absolutely free, education is absolutely free, and this should be paid with taxes. The problem, sometimes we don't get enough money to reach all these benefits. Right now, many of our leaders are in prison. You may, sure, you remember that in 2017, we made a referendum which was considered illegal by the Spanish government, but we made it. Spanish government sent more than 10,000 police to try to avoid it. It was a very, very hard day. We had fights, we have people sent to jail, we have beatings from the police, but we could achieve the final aim. It was vote. We vote and the results were more than 80% in favor of independence. Okay, this is not the exact truth because many people was so scared they didn't want to go to vote, but it was just a reflection of how the society is in Catalonia. What is the situation right now? Right now, the main problem is something that you Californians should avoid by any means. It's being really divided by the different parties who have the same objectives. We have 6 parties which their objective is being independent, but they go from the left side to the right side, all the political options. Everybody wants to be independent from those parties, but their aims, their projects, their ways are completely different. So you can imagine that if we don't have just one objective together, it is almost impossible. I think that in the future, this can be a little arranged because when you have a common enemy, then you are able to decide that which one is the best way to reach the position. But right now, I think we are a little lost, especially because the most important leaders are in jail. We have 12 politicians from the independent countries in jail and more than 3,000 people waiting for being judged because of arranging the referendum in 2017. But this hasn't diminished the real wish the people have to achieve the objective of being one day independent. We're waiting that one day Spanish government will be able to make a deal with us, allow us to vote and decide by ourselves. The same is happening in the Basque country. We are the 2 parts of Spain which are trying to be different from the rest. We want to be in a good deal, in a good relationship with the rest of Spain, but Spain see us as enemies. Everybody who is an independent is an enemy.
Let me jump in there real
okay.
quick. Thank you, Pep. Thank you. We have a few minutes, so I'm going to turn it over to Congress. If you have questions about Catalonia independence, a question about understanding Catalonia independence, please unmute yourself and ask Pep. Jason Wright has his hand raised. Jason.
Yeah, pardon the background noise, the weed whacker going in the distance there. I have been following with Catalonia for some time. I'm very familiar with Carl Puigdemont. I have been wondering what has been going on. It's very good to hear that 51% voted for independent parties. I noticed that Spain has been a member of the United Nations since 1955, which means that they had to sign the United Nations Entrance Treaty, which part of it states that signing it means you grant the right to self-determination to the people under your charge. That means that Spain agreed to the UN that they won't subvert self-determination causes. My question is, are there folks in, I mean, I know most of the actual leadership now is imprisoned. Again, huge violation of that treaty. Is there anyone in the leadership who can look into United Nations Entrance Treaty Article 5 self-determination and see about bringing this case before the World Court?
Yeah, well, I see that you know a lot about things that are happening here. Our president, the former president, was he had to escape from Spain, and now he is in Brussels, and even he is a representative of the European Council because it was elected by 1 million Catalan people. Because as he has not been judged by the Spanish judges, he could present in Europe, and he's representing us. Also, yes, there are some resolutions from United Nations about autodetermination in different countries, but in Spain, they do not accept the authority of United Nations in this issue. They consider that Spain has a constitution, is a democratic country, they say, and also that this means that United Nations cannot enter in this national problem. They have made even a couple of resolutions because some leaders, which are not politicians, that are social leaders, are in prison too. And even there is a council in the United Nations that made a statement for releasing these people, but Spanish government doesn't listen to it, as they do not listen also some resolutions from the European Council. Which is more curious is that when all the leaders that are in jail make an appeal to European courts, they win. But Spain do not accept, at least very quickly, all these resolutions. Now we are waiting for a resolution from the European Court about Puigdemont and Junqueras, which are two of the leaders, to see if they can leave the jail or return to Spain. But Europe in general says that it's a problem from Spain, and they do not want to mess with the problems with different countries. Just think about Turkey, Hungary, and all the other countries that has problems. Europe seems that they prefer to stay apart from any problem from the countries, problems related to politics.
Thank you, Pep. We're going to go to Darren Brown. Darren Brown has a question, then we'll go to Hannah.
So my question is about media. So as we know in California that the way that we are presented is not always accurate in the national or international media. Everything that we know about Catalonia is from obviously international media. What is the biggest misconception or the biggest, the most inaccurate thing that is portrayed in the media that you want to correct?
Okay, well, media, I think American media is doing very well. I usually read New York Times, I see the television in America, and they really present things as they are. At least, for example, all the information related to the 1st of October when there was referendum and the problems with police and all this, it was very well reflected. In general, maybe they accept the official version that it's just a question of money. Of course, we want to be independent because it means that we will be able to deal with our money. But it's not only this, it's just a cultural question. We consider different from Spanish. Really, I do not consider myself Spanish. I don't speak the same language. Of course, I speak Spanish because it's official there, but my language is Catalan. And my way of thinking, it has nothing to see with Spanish. I have a lot of friends in California, and it has been really hard to convince them that I don't like bullfighting, I don't like paella, I don't like all the things for you are a typical Spanish topic. We are really different in many ways. We have a history that comes from more than 1,000 years ago. We've been together with Spain for many years, but we are not the same. And Spain is selling to the world that we are just some greedy people that want to be by ourselves because we feel over the others. We are like, now in America, you are having a problem with white people that they consider supremacists. We are considered supremacists by the Spanish media, which is not true. We don't consider ourselves over the others. We just want to be like the others, but in the same way. Imagine that we are just a community of, we are a neighborhood in Spain. I want to be a neighbor and I want to be friend of my neighbor, but I don't want my neighbor just deciding what I have to do in my home. And this is what the Spanish are doing with us in many occasions. But in fact, really, I think American media is speaking quite well about us, especially the big media, and especially New York Times and Washington Post, which I read quite often.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to Hannah. 1 second, though. Just want to say, yes, California CALEXIT Congress only supports peaceful separation movements.
Yeah.
We're big fans of Catalonia independence as we understand it. I will point out, though, that we have not shared that opinion with the Basque independence movement. There's a little bit more of a convoluted history. Not going to go into it. Just saying, Pep, you're welcome. Just want to point out that while we support Catalonia, we have a little bit of a different opinion on Basque. Our opinion does not go to the Basque movement, but we are very pleased to be talking to the Catalonian independence movement and their commitment to peaceful legal separation. Let me turn it over to Hannah Miyamoto, a special guest here on my behalf. Hannah has a question about Catalonia independence for you, Pep. Quick question, and then we'll do one more question, then we're going to go to Hannah's presentation.
Oh,
Hannah,
there we
please.
go. Good. Yeah, Pep. So I should tell you that I actually recently watched on Japanese television, because I get it on digital cable, long story. It was actually visiting Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and it wasn't very clear to me, and this is actually going to connect right what you just talked about, which is culturally speaking, how does Catalan compare to its neighbors in France versus Madrid? Because that's how I kind of see this, is you guys are in a certain part of Spain that was attached to Spain rather late in Spanish history, but you're close to Provence and you're close to Languedoc. So tell us a little bit about what are we not getting as far as Catalan culture versus what we might find in Madrid, for instance, or France.
Okay, first about history. Maybe you should know that Catalonia in around 500 years ago included the south of France. South of France, would you say Roussillon, Cerdagne, this part of France, Ariège, Midi-Pyrénées, it was exactly the same that Catalonia, and we spoke the same language, which was Occitan. Occitan and Catalan are very close languages, and they evolved to Catalan in one side and evolved to Aranese in the other one, which is a different language in Catalan too. But all this region spoke the same language, and we share the same history for many years. It was after a peace treaty called the Pyrenees that from the frontier, the border was divided exactly following the Pyrenees. Then decided up the Pyrenees is France, south of the Pyrenees is Spain, with two exceptions. Aran Valley, which is a little part of Catalonia in the north that they speak their own language, which is pure Occitan still, and then there is Libya. Libya is a small part of France which belongs to Catalonia in the middle of France. That's stupid things about history. But we share more tradition with French people than with the rest of Spain. In fact, we have been friends with French people in more occasions than with the Spanish, and we have been fighting with the Spanish more often than with French. All the problem came after 1714, when the French kings invaded Spain and decided to change all the rules in Catalonia and force us to belong to Madrid. They erased all our culture, even language and all the rules we had. But it's just history. Yes, I see. Yeah?
No, keep going, keep going. I was waving to someone coming on.
Oh, yeah.
Please.
But well, if you know Barcelona, I feel well. Also, if you speak French, you will see that our language is we can understand French when they speak slowly, and they can understand us when we speak Catalan slowly. Spanish is different. Well, all these languages come from Latin. The only difference in Spain is Euskara, which the language they speak in the Basque country. It's a language I speak Euskara too, as a curiosity. It's a language which origins are not known. It's considered one of the oldest languages in the world, and it's not known at all. And it's almost impossible to understand if you haven't studied it. If you're Spanish and you make an effort, you can understand Catalan if you pay attention if the other person speaks slowly, but you will not ever able to speak Euskara or understand Euskara, which they speak in the Basque country. But one point, you said that Basque country supported the violence for many years. People who is right now ruling the Basque country are just at our side, and we are having a very good relation with them because they have seen that the only way to achieve things is being peaceful and doing the things, keeping away the violence. Yeah, and right now it's a quite different people. Terrorism and the really crazy mad people who ruled the terrorism in Euskadi right now have disappeared, and the ones that are now are peaceful people and wishing to change things.
Okay, okay. Well, please put them in contact with me. We are willing to talk to peaceful activists who reject violence. We're going to go to the next presentation, but I do want to say one thing to you, Pep, and you tell me how accurate this is. So, Catalonia, here's Spain. Catalonia is at the far end of Spain. They're kind of off on the edge, yes, on the ocean. All right? And they share more culture with the country to the southern border. They share a lot of culture with the country to the southern border, which the rest of Spain doesn't.
North.
Or the northern border. Sorry, thank you, Hannah, the northern border. So here's this economy. It's on the coast, far away from the main population, and boy, does it have a lot of cultural heritage with the country right on the border, okay, which the main part of the country doesn't. And Catalonia is very international trade friendly and almost has a slightly different economy economically than the rest of Spain, and is much more internationally connected and super thriving. And so you have this highly productive economic region that has a sort of different way of making money, is more internationally connected, has a slightly different culture going back hundreds of years because it's more connected to the border than the rest of the country. And it's slightly different from the interior. And they make a lot of money, and the interior keeps most of the money, and they get very little back. And then the interior doesn't have the same culture as them on the coast. That is exactly what happened with
California,
South Africa, the Cape Independence Movement, California, and Baja. So I want to point and Scotland. I want to point out to you guys a pattern here. Catalonia, California, Baja, the Cape Independence Movement, Scotland. Here's a region. They're at the far end of that. They have a slightly different economy. They're doing very well. Money gets sucked to the core. They don't get fair money back. They don't get the amount of support that their regional economy, which is different than the mainland economy, gets. And they're culturally distinct going back way on. And that culture really isn't respected. I mean, folks, that's 5 major independence movements all following the exact same protocol. What do you think that means? I think it's a pattern for likely independence movements. I think a lot of people talk about independence and secession and breaking off, and I go, okay. And then they say, oh, there's hundreds of movements. And I go, okay. But what about the biggest ones? totally random? No, they all seem to follow a pattern. So what I put them in is there's independence movements, and I'm starting to come up to this as they have a pattern of doing this, and then et cetera, moving on. Jason, I see your hand raised, but we have 20 minutes and I got to go to Hannah. So I'm sorry. Following the rules of Congress, I'm going to end this presentation. We're going to move on to the next one with Hannah Miyamoto. No offense, Pep, we would love to talk to everybody in the Catalonia independence movement. Please feel welcome. There's an invitation from Yes California, CALEXIT Congress, to the independence movement there at Catalonia. Also, if you know peaceful Basque independence people, please send them my way. You have my email. We would love to have you back. We would love to have a connection with Catalonia. We would love to have peaceful.
Yes, don't worry. I'll do. I have a lot of friends there. I'll do.
Please. We want to have everybody here. We had Baja on. We had the Cape Independence Movement on. And Pep, can you type in the chat box here? You see the chat? You're on Zoom now. Can you type your email in the chat?
Yes.
Pep is going to type his email in the chat, everybody. If you want to contact Pep respectfully and nicely about Catalonia independence, please do. Don't email him on anything else. He's my contact, okay? All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Hannah Miyamoto. Hannah has a great new project that she's been working on for a while. And while Hannah's a guest presenter, I personally am proud to bring her on here. Hannah's working on a project that I think is the level that I want the Congress to be working at. So what she's done is figured out the strategy that we are in a coronavirus pandemic time. A lot of people are watching videos. A lot of people are going to physical buildings. A lot of kids are having to be trained virtually, and maybe that doesn't change. And Hannah also noticed that there's a lack of videos on California history. So we're going to a time where everybody's watching videos, kids, college kids, they don't have California history videos. And the ones they do, telling a fib. In fact, as we know here in the CalExit movement, Pep, maybe they do this over there in Catalonia, we don't get to know the actual history of how California became a state. It was invaded by illegal invaders who shot every minority who stood in the way and then introduced segregation, genocide, sexual slavery, and apartheid government within about 5 years. That's not in the school books for California kids today. It is past the year 2020, and California school children do not know the history of how they were made a state, and they get this sanitized version that does not reflect reality. We love minorities, we talk about diversity, and yet we don't talk about how our government created segregation, gunning down of brown-skinned people who wanted their vote, disenfranchisement of minorities, removing minorities from the vote, instituting segregation, genocide, and sexual slavery. And while I love California, that's this government that did that. And I don't think it's okay to act like you never did anything wrong and not pay amends. So, Hannah, talk to us about the California War History Channel, the strategy behind it, and what you think you can achieve with making Californians aware of the ugliness of how they became Americans and setting the road for an international legal case, I think. Everybody, Hannah Miyamoto.
Hannah, yeah, first thing. I want to show everybody, this is show and tell. This is my new camera. And I now actually have my hands on an actual cinema camera. This is pretty close to a cinema camera. You're looking at $2,000 on the hoof right here. So you just, including this monitor. Now, I actually want to kind of throw this back to Marcus. I mean, I like what he wants. I mean, just so you know, yes, I started a concept. I should tell you that very recently I decided I'm going to become a video producer. And so I'm sort of using my bedroom as a video studio as best I can. And a green screen back there, my new camera, new video tripod, my other video cameras and things like that, and this computer. The question here is, though, so I don't know. I thought maybe you'd want to show everybody the video that I've got. So what I've done was an introduction video for the series. And the idea I had was, well, I just think maybe the series, the video tells everybody what it is. Can you just show everybody what that is?
Sure. Let me go to.
I mean, I could if you want to share screen. I don't know. Usually doesn't work very well. It's usually better when the host does it.
Can you type in the chat box the URL for the
It's
video?
really simple. It's the California War. Remember?
Okay.
The CaliforniaWar.com. That will bring you right to the URL.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes straight to the channel.
YouTube. Right. One second here.
And we'll just show everybody the first. Well, I'll show a shout out when I think it's.
It's not loaded up on Google, so I can go directly to YouTube.
Yeah, you'll have to go on YouTube. You just type the CaliforniaWar.com.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Second.
You might want to go to share screen, mate. I mean, not share. Share us your screen, yeah. Well, want me to try it?
URL in the chat would be a big help.
You don't have it? I mean, it could not be simpler.
I can't find it.
That's it. I mean,
On YouTube. Nope. This is taking a little bit.
it seems to me like, Marcus, if you went to share screen, you share us your screen, and then go to open up a Google, and it goes to the CaliforniaWar.com. You ought to be able to hit it straight to the URL for the URL. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. I'll show you what I'm getting. Oh, there
Good.
it is.
And then it's second down.
That one?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, this one. Introduction.
Yeah. Let's get the sound up. You want to take it off
Sorry,
mute?
just a second. Computer's thinking about it.
Can you take it off mute? There you go.
How did California become part of the United States? Chances are you would probably answer that question by saying that California became part of the United States because the U.S.
I don't know what just happened.
I think it's too much bandwidth, but maybe also I think you've got a problem here because you're getting feedback from your own audio. You probably want to mute yourself.
Okay.
It makes California sound like a prize in the carnival, or that Mexico lost a high-stakes poker game. You really think California is the 100 million acre plush toy? My name is Miyamoto. I'm a Californian with degrees in civil engineering, law, social change and development.
Sorry, folks. Technical difficulties.
Hey, Marcus, can you just let me share my screen, please?
Sure. Give me 1 second to do that.
And you probably want to kill your own video.
Yeah. Give me a second. Sorry. Figuring this out. Okay. So that didn't work.
Let's hope this works.
Okay. Share screen. I'm clicking share screen.
Okay.
And
You got to enable mine. There we go. No. Oh, yeah. I think we're okay now. I hope. There we go. Is that right?
I
No?
don't see anything on your side. Is that? No? Okay, maybe just talk about the project because we're We're
Well, I
losing the
mean,
audience.
what's there to say? I mean, the fact is, it's a video. It's really easy to find. Go to the CaliforniaWar.com, guys. The main thing is, it's the idea I had. As I said, I decided I'm going to become a video producer as a career. And the idea I had was simply every week there will be a different episode that'll talk about what happened in that week. Obviously, we're way beyond. My first idea was to start for the first of the month of January. We're way beyond that, but it doesn't really matter to me because some of the weeks are more interesting. There's different topics. But for instance, the very first week, we'll be covering out the theory of manifest destiny, how it actually originated, and how that relates to what I'm calling the California War. Calling it the California War because to emphasize that when the United States of America, oh, excuse me, Marcus, could you be a dear and unmute your own audio? There, that's a lot better. Now I'm not getting any feedback. Yeah, so guys, it's just, we're calling it the California War because you think about some of the myths we have, right? One of them is that California was a piece of Mexico that the United States of America took from Mexico, which completely ignores what about all the people who were in California at the time and how closely they identify with Mexico, how closely did they even relate to the Mexican government, and what was going on with the Mexican government, things like that. Turns out that, you can honestly say without exaggeration that California liberalism actually begins before it was American, because a lot of the people, the dominant power in California was actually very liberal compared to the government in Mexico. And that was actually a big problem they had with Mexico. That's why Santa Anna was a dirty word in California, believe it or not, because he represented the conservatives, while people like Alvarado, people like Pico, they were, those are the people, by the way, that we named our streets after too. Anyways, I could go on, but the idea is every single week to have a show and to present this idea that, without getting too excited. Marcus talked about the law. And I think we probably will take that one piece. The video that you will see actually has a piece of Civil War movie video, but it tries to say, look, the southern states were not allowed to secede from the Union because they were actually part of the United States before they became southern states. But that doesn't apply to California. California was effectively self-governing before it became American. And as a result, the argument I'd make is that, and I think we should all make, is that because California was invaded, the United States of America has no right to claim to govern it. If we want to allow the United States to govern, we can. If we choose to end that, we should. And the rest of the world should respect that. But to know that, you have to know the history. You have to know that, and I guess the bottom line here too, I'll be honest about it, is the trouble we have, I think, in this movement is that there's 39 million people in California, and most of them do not identify themselves as American first and Californian second, because they don't even have a concept of California that exists separate from the United States of America. But I think that if you make the Californios basically, and I said Californios, basically into heroes, everybody can identify with those people, and they can build up an identity of being Californian as opposed to being American. Like Pep just talked about, Catalonia. Catalonia has been part of Spain for hundreds of years, but the difference is that the people in Catalonia identify as their culture as being, frankly, he didn't want to say it's superior, but I'd say, yeah, they do feel themselves as being, a cut above, a higher culture, more advanced, more liberal, more progressive, and ultimately more like what they want to be. And that is, of course, the definition of self-determination. So I'm going to start this video series in May, I believe. And I'm pretty excited about it. I can tell you that I'm getting better and better at editing. But I can tell you that most of the time I'm spending on these episodes is research. It is so much research because there is very little out there and you have to pick little pieces of them, like give an example. I found some very good material that was about United States Army engineers in the 19th century. So it came from the United States Army Military History Center, right? I mean, they had data that was useful and relevant to California. But when you're pulling things from that far and that far and that far, you can imagine it's a lot of work. So, Marcus, does that help?
Very good, very good. We'll take a few questions from everybody, but I have long supported this project. This goes back a couple of years when we realized that Californians don't know their own history. So, I mean, I just go back to when my niece came home and she was celebrating Ascension Day and she was all happy and she had a little picture of the American flag with the California bear. And I go, did they talk about how they took over the place? Did they talk about how the people here didn't want to be run that way? Did they talk about how they shot them? Did they talk about how they denied Mexicans the vote? Did they talk about how they told Black kids, you don't get to go to school with other kids, which this area had never seen before and was instituted for the first time in 1852? Did they tell them about how Asian people can't own property? Did they tell them about how a formal genocide equivalent to the sophistication of the Nazi Party in the 1930s was literally ran out of Sacramento? And he's like, no, they don't cover any of that. And I'm like, well, when do they cover it? And then Hannah found the curriculum from the California government and it ain't there. So you can go all the way through public school into college and have no clue of what happened at all. The story is just Americans came and then they all got a vote and democracy and it was wonderful and then they became a state. Well, not everybody got a vote and a lot of people were shot and a lot of people with brown skin didn't get to be part of that process. Yeah, they let a couple Californios in and then the majority, 90%, they said, no, you Asian, you Black, you Indigenous, you Mexican, you ain't part of this. So that's illegal under international laws. Hannah brought that up to me. Like, that's not a fair vote. Gunning down people who own that land beforehand is not a fair vote. And as Hannah also pointed out to me, California was, well, and we knew this from Matt Owen, California was independent for 10 years, 1835 to 1846, 1836 to 1846. Kerry McWilliams, the historian, pointed that out. If you want to challenge Kerry McWilliams, go ahead and embarrass yourself and say he doesn't know what he's talking about. But basically 1836 to 1846, we were independent from Mexico and California, effectively by international law standards. America invaded a sovereign country, overthrew it. And what she's pointing out is that means under international law standards, there's a lot of reasons to say this is a conquest and that what you did was illegal and we were never actually made a state. Additionally, most Californians don't know the horrible history of how they became Americans. So hell yeah, it's easy to be attached to America and I could never leave America and I'm an American. So you support segregation? No. You support Asian people don't get to own property like in South Africa apartheid? No. You support genocide like the Nazis? No. You support gunning Mexicans down in the face for the right to vote? No. Then what are you talking about? I don't know what you're mean.
Yeah. I just put up a listen chat, by the way, KCET shows. It's a show's called Lost LA. I highly recommend it. KCET is the educational channel in Los Angeles, and Lost LA is their series. It's on the web, and you want to watch it. It'll. But they have one show called Borderlands, which I think is extremely good at presenting who Pio Pico was and a lot about what California life was like. And they're actually a little bit negative on Californios because, of course, they talk a lot about what happened to the indigenous people, who, of course, the Californios helped oppress.
I really don't want to get into a whole history lesson.
No, I don't. I just want to say that there is some good stuff out there, but I think they also mentioned that after the American invasion and conquest, there was a great deal of extrajudicial violence against California people. You know,
Thank you.
and
Thank you,
they
Hannah.
talk about that.
Okay.
But it's a
So let me-
complicated story.
I understand. Let me take it from there because I got to wrap this up. We got to go to Congress. So, Professor, 1 second. Some Californios did try to repress the indigenous. Other Californios wanted to give them back their land and led the fight for releasing the missions. So it is not fair to say that all the Californios were against the indigenous. Some were, and some were not. Additionally, the Californios that were the hardest fighting against the American illegal invasion were the ones who wanted the indigenous to be free. So when we're talking about Californios and we're talking about the people who fought the American invaders and who did not want to be taken over, it is those Californios who were the most emphatic about returning all the land to the indigenous. And in fact, the Californios who did not participate as frequently or as invested against the illegal American invasion were the ones who wanted the land from the indigenous. So I'm proud to be with the Californios who fought against American illegal invasion, stood for independence, fought for independence, and stood for the land going back to the indigenous.
Just to make clear, I only bring up the because, no, honestly, I want to make this clear. I mean, to me, it's like so much. It's like so what? I mean, you know, that the United States of America by no means was some kind of humanitarian intervention in the behalf of Native Americans, and so therefore, it really doesn't matter what the California versus an indigenous relationship. The United States of America invaded California. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Hannah. Okay,
Walter,
Professor Williams.
Yeah.
But Professor Williams, it's got to be quick because the rules are moving on.
Can you hear me?
So 1 minute.
Can you hear me now?
1 minute, sir, and then we got to move on. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Two things. First, right now I'm reading Robert Miller's book, Juan Alvarado, Governor of California. Hannah, what do you think of that book?
I'm not really familiar with it. I've been reading a lot of primary sources.
Oh, okay. Well, he's, I mean, this was published by University of Oklahoma Press, which has a really good record in Native American studies. The second thing I wanted to mention is that years ago, I was working on a book about Native Americans in the Civil War era, and I didn't complete it. I did complete, however, a chapter on California natives during the Civil War era from the late 1850s on through the 1860s. And what I found shocked me, because we think of Lincoln as, you know, the great emancipator. He's in favor of rights for everybody and stuff like this. He was horrible to the natives. And basically he turned over, in order to get California gold to finance the Union war effort, he turned over authority over indigenous people to the power people in California, and they just took native land and resources with impunity. I mean, having like legal Indian hunts, they call them, where they would just go out, a group of whites would go out, you know, with the intent of killing Indians, just like they were going out for a deer hunt or something. And it was just horrible, one horrible thing after another. And so if I could be of help when you get to that subject, I'd be glad to.
Well, I don't think we're going to. I don't have to, because
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
John Fremont was in
We're moving on with the
committed
issue. Sorry, this is
massacres.
the rules by Congress.
So
I'm asking everybody to please mute themselves. Sorry. These are the new rules by Congress. I have to follow them. This is what 43 people said. We're moving on to the Congress section on time. Thank you. I apologize.
Can I just say thank you for your support, and watch the video and make sure also to like the video, because it helps YouTube decide to show it to more people. It's the biggest thing you can do to help people watch this channel and get more aware of what's going on.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to move on to the Congress section, by the rules by Congress. This is what Congress wanted. So it was, don't let the discussions go on past time, keep to the schedule. So if you don't like it, you don't have to. We'll come to a Congress meeting and saying, hey, I want the rules changed. You can also go to the Rules Committee and suggest changes to the rules. But until that happens, I got to do what the group said is how they want it to run. So no offense to anybody. We're going to go right into the Congress section. So let me share screen. Okay, so we're down to Congress votes. This is the last section. At 12:30 to 1, we will stop and have a public comment section where anybody from the public can comment. So today, we're going to be talking about resolutions to consider. We're going to be talking about funds, if they want to be appropriated. And then we're going to be talking about the new committees that launched. So let me cover the new committees because we need to cover that, and then we'll get into resolutions. Some of the new committees right now are Monday at 7 p.m. the Rules Committee meets. That is headed by Christine Howard-Ishmawi. There's her email, Christine@CalExit. This is also available in the forum right here. So if you go to the CalExit forum, elections and appointments, committees approved by CalExit Congress, here you go. All the committees, the names, when they meet, who's members, how to get a hold of them, every single committee, CalExit Congress forums, elections and appointments. So hopefully this doesn't take forever. But elections and appointments, and then committees approved. Yeah, elections, appointments, committees approved by Congress. This is where I'm pulling this information from. Here's all the contacts and all the committees. So let me get back to, right. So Rules Committees Monday at 7, headed by Christine. Professional Culture Committee, which is designed to make us all professional and make us the most corporate and organized Congress we can be, is also by Christine. So she's accepted both positions, heading over rules and heading over professional culture creation. Those are not the same idea. One is, how do we get people to have a super motivated culture here, where we're able to debate with each other, but come to agreement and get production done even when we have different opinions. High productive teams. The other one is rules, bylaws, have to. How do we avoid conflicts? She's in charge of both, but it's about bylaws and getting people to buy in. Tuesday at 7 p.m. is the Domestic Issues Committee. That's by Jason. That's Tuesday at 7. By the way, all these committees are on this same link. So if you click this link Monday at 7, you can have rules and culture. If you click this link
Yeah, is anyone seeing any video or audio from Marcus? Oh. Okay, let's just hold tight for a minute. I'm sure he'll pop back in. I'm not sure how the recording is still going. Yes, laptop down, he says.
I think as long as anyone is still in the meeting, it'll keep the recording constant.
Okay. Well, while we wait for him to come back.
Why don't you talk, Jason, why don't you talk about domestic issues?
Okay, yeah. So for the Domestic Issues Committee, I have not yet had anyone mark.
Jason, you muted yourself.
Well, if Jason can't be on it, then go next to Robert Stark and talk about International Committee.
Yeah, okay, so International Committee, I haven't been briefed like on what the official rules are, but it does seem to be like discussing like whether the Congress should take official stances on crucial international issues. There is just sort of embassy thing with other secessionist movements, but I think that's a different committee. So primarily would be like putting out like whether we should put out press releases on hot button international issues.
Okay, I apologize about that. Can everyone see me and hear me? I don't know what happened. Laptop just
Loud and clear.
decided it ain't doing it. Okay, anyways, getting right back to it. Monday at 7 is Rules Committee. Also is the Professional Culture Committee headed by Christine Howard Schmaui. There's her email. Also, we have the Domestic Issues Committee. Screen share screen. Domestic Issues Committee headed by Jason. There's his email. There's Christine's email. Also, this is on the forum under elections and appointments. Wednesday at 7 is the International Issues headed by Robert Stark. Wednesday at 8 is the Finance Committee headed by Marcus. The Judiciary Committee also exists, but that will meet on an ad hoc basis, meaning as we need it. So Monday at 7, you can go and meet Christine for rules and professional culture. Tuesday at 7, you can talk to Jason about domestic issues. That means proposing resolutions on anything happening in the US of A. Wednesday at 7, you could go and talk to Robert about proposing resolutions on international issues. That means anything happening in the world. And then Wednesday at 8 is finance. So let me turn it over to the committee heads, and I'll let you all talk for a second or two about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Christine Howard Ishmaeli, could you talk for 2 minutes about your committees?
Hi, so for the Professional Culture Committee, that's the first committee meeting at 7 on Mondays, followed by Rules. And currently with the Rules Committee, we've decided that there will be no pre-voting on any of the resolutions or votes, but we are going to extend the voting to 72 hours after the meeting on Sundays. And then with Culture Committee, anybody, Rules and Culture, anybody's welcome to join. More heads, more ideas. So we're working on ways that we can improve communication and working on critical thinking through our Zoom interface, since obviously because of COVID, we can't meet in person, but we want to start getting everybody thinking and working critically together.
How would you define the and the Rules Committee? What is the point of the Rules Committee, Christine, in your opinion?
Just developing the rules that we're going to go by with the Congress. And of course, everything gets voted on by Congress as well. These are only the ideas that we think the direction we need to take.
Okay. Okay, let's go to Jason. Jason, you have meetings on Tuesday at 7 on domestic issues, I believe. What do you
Yes.
picture that?
So I had just started getting into this when you called to let me know you were trying to get your laptop back up.
I'm sorry. Sorry, brother.
No, it's all good. It's just gonna seem just a little bit repetitive. I just want to, start it over.
I'm asking you to be repetitive. I'm asking you to be repetitive.
So I have not had anyone contacting me saying, hey, I would like to be a part of this committee. Marcus has been kind enough to help provide a second brain and head and body in said discussion, a second point of view, right? I know I can think of all sorts of things on my own, but I have my way of thinking about things. And I really personally, I value, very highly value and cherish other people's opinions and input. I would really, really, really like anyone who wants to be a part of these, either the domestic issues or the international outreach, because I'm part of both.
I already have international outreach, but I'm interested in being involved in the domestic too.
I'll get to that in a second when we do, Robert. Please continue. Thanks, Robert. Please go ahead, Jason. Thanks, Robert.
Well, yeah. So there's the one difference that I'm noting between our two committees, Robert, is that yours is international issues and mine is the outreach. So mine is mainly, hey, let's be friends, let's work together, let's do these embassies, make connections. Yours is the like meat and potatoes. Hey, you want to be a part of a solution? Is there something going on that you have an opinion about? That's the international issues, right? The international outreaches project mainly right now is the embassies, like Baja. But for domestic issues, it's kind of along the same line as that, as your group, Robert, is that but domestic, not international. If there is an issue here in California or United States in general, so I'll give an example. The United States has been locking kids in cages down near our southern border for years now. Under this current executive seating, under the previous one, and under the one before that, 3 executive powers in a row with this policy of separating children from their parents and locking them away in cages. This is a huge issue, I think. And I see a huge outcry about this with not much getting done by our current established government sources. And it's not just Californians who are upset about it, right? There are people all over that are very upset.
Jason, if you could summarize real quick, and then I need to go to Robert. No offense.
Okay, yeah. So this is a domestic issue, and the committee discusses said issue and tries to really put heads together and try to formulate a way that we can tackle this issue together and possibly even, hopefully, push our current elected representatives to take this plan of attack on fixing this issue.
Okay, thank you. So basically, to summarize, we are going to start proposing resolutions. I'm going to cover some in a few minutes. The resolutions largely can go into one of 2 committees, although you as a Congress member can come directly to any Congress and propose a resolution on anything, and you can skip the committees. But if you do that, it's probably going to go to one of the committees to get worked on a little bit. So it's in your interest to go to one of the committees. You can go to the domestic committee by Jason. Hey, I don't like kids in cages. Hey, I have a problem with the recall debate. Hey, I like the recall debate. Hey, the air quality relation, climate change law, something the Senate did that's horrible and proves that we aren't doing working right. The court system strikes down California values, all domestic issues. So what we want is everybody here in the Congress to say, hey, I saw something in the news, like Professor Williams sent me an article about police reform. We looked into that. You would find something in the news and say, that's against California values, or that's the federal government coming down on us, or we should not do that because we could do our thing independently. Yeah, exactly. Professor Williams already gets it. So you take news. California could do this on our own. We don't need those nasty feds. Here's the feds holding us back. Here's the international world recognizing us, something that's pro-California. You would go to the domestic issues thing with Jason, work up the resolution, how it would work, and come to Congress. You still have the right to go directly to Congress and propose it, but you're going to have a stronger package if you go to that committee, get a resolution really worked out with a team that researches it, and then come to Congress together. Stronger presentation, don't have to do it. International committees by Robert Stark, same concept. Joe Biden said he's not going to say anything about a genocide against the Uyghurs live on CNN. That's against California values. Joe Biden and the federal government are bombing Syria and destabilizing the region. That's against California values. The invasion of Iraq was unnecessary, against international law, and got 500,000 brown-skinned people who are Muslim killed. That's an international issue. We condemn those things because they're not California values. That would go to Robert Stark. So let me be quiet for a second. I'm going to turn it over to Robert Stark. Robert, how do you envision your committee, sir?
Yeah, so I think to start things off is just to have like an open discussion about international issues and choose maybe like the top 5, like the ones you mentioned. So yeah, Biden's policy, what he's continuing doing in Syria, and discuss like whether we should like voting on putting out a resolution and saying like the CALEXIT Congress disapproves of Biden's handling of Syria, for instance, or there's some issue going on right now in Yemen. So like deciding like whether we should take official stance and then voting on these crucial world affairs issues.
Yeah, okay. And just to make it clear to everybody, let me show you. So all of the meetings, again, are going to be here on Sundays and here on the forum. If you want to be involved, if you want to say what Yes California is going to say and the projects that we give money to and pursue, it's here. So we're going to put the power of what Yes California says, and Yes California is the face of the entire CalExit California independence movement. We're the largest group. We have everybody here, and we speak for the entire movement. You get to tell us what to say. So 43, not 43 of you, just the voting members, get to determine what Yes California is going to say, and it goes out to 160,000 people, and it might get into the news. So proposing resolutions is one. That's what the Congress is going to propose, and they're going to state, and that's what Congresses do. The other thing is going to be allocating funds. But if you look at here in the forum, so here's the committees, here's the domestic committee, here's the international affairs. International affairs, here's Robert. Domestic affairs is Jason. Here's the rules committee by Christine. We go up to resolutions are now under consideration. Eventually, we're going to vote. The approved resolutions will be listed here. So anyone in the public cannot participate, but they can view everything on the forum, and they can see all of the resolutions you have approved here in the approved resolutions. Additionally, if we took a vote and it didn't pass, it's going to go to the rejected resolutions. So it's not gone, but it's there. People in the public can see the resolutions we discuss. They can, members can propose resolutions here, resolutions now under consideration. And eventually the public will see what we approved and what we did not. Let's go to resolutions now under consideration here on the forum. And I've already made a couple. Here's proposed resolutions. And I would recommend people do this format, say proposed resolutions, and then type in what it is. Anybody can come here and add a topic. So if you are a Congress member, you can come here and propose a resolution. You don't have to ask anybody, etc. Again, it would work for you to go to the committee, have some people work on it, but you don't have to. It can come here. We're going to start voting on these. Let me stop the share. Okay, so that was it for the committees. I do need to bring up that we have 2 more committees that don't have heads or that need to meet. The Talk with Texas Committee, which is about Yes California pursuing opportunities to jointly publicize the Texas nationalist movement along with us, is by Rabbi Stephen Axelman. We still need Rabbi Axelman to set up a time for that committee, unless you want to make it ad hoc, which means you only meet whenever you have a good idea. So some of these committees are standing, they have to keep going. Some of these committees like Judiciary can meet whenever. Also, bringing Californians together was a group committee to come up with ideas on how to build unity here in California. I'm nominating TJ Shelton as the head since he proposed that, and we'll do some votes next week. I would like to ask Congress to vote on one issue right now proposed by the committee, which is the Rules Committee said, okay, you want Congress to be where the action is, these meetings. People have to come to this meeting, give their voice, and this is where the action is, and then you follow what votes happen on the voting forum. So the way to do that is we originally had voting before the committee, before the Congress, then we had voting at the Congress and afterwards. I'm asking for Congress's approval to do what the Rules Committee suggested, which is we're going to get rid of pre-voting. No more pre-voting. The first time you hear about an issue is here on Sunday. Voting happens 72 hours on the forum after Congress. So Congress meets, you got to watch what Congress said about the issue, and then you have 72 hours afterwards to vote. So basically what it does is it frames whoever votes so that they're not coming to it with their own opinions. They're coming to it looking at what Congress said and then voting based upon that understanding. This was so that we could raise the profile of the Congress meetings and have the forum follow up for additional business. So I like this idea. No pre-voting. You go to Congress, it's the first time we discuss an issue, and then we do a vote, and then it gets posted up on the forum, and you have 72 hours afterwards, if you're horrified by that decision, to go, whoa, I can't live with this. If a bunch of Congress members are horrified by that decision, then it would come back for a rediscussion and a vote. However, if Congress discusses an issue and votes, and not that many people vote against it, it's a done deal. That's kind of how we think it's going to work, is that Congress will approve things that are seen reasonable. And really the 72 hours is going to be just for anybody to say, okay, 1 second, Professor. 1 second, I see. But then if you really hated it, there's a catch-all. And that was the idea proposed by the Rules Committee. So I'd like to ask people's support for that. But first, Professor Williams.
Quick question. When exactly would the 72 hours start? What would be the starting point?
It would start, that's a good question. That's a good question. It would start probably the second I put the notes up or we loaded that video of Congress. So probably Sunday night by midnight.
I would suggest that we do it by the end of the meeting because people the attention during the meeting should be on the issues we're being discussed. And so you don't want to start it until the end of this meeting.
Yeah, so 72 hours from the end of the meeting. Okay, can everyone live with that? Again, well, we can vote this in. If you really hate it, in 2 weeks from now, we can have a revision. But just to get it working, is anyone opposed to us shifting the rules as proposed by the Rules Committee to have just the Congress and then 72 hours on the forum to vote for issues? No more voting ahead of time. You have to vote at the Congress or 72 hours afterwards. Is anyone opposed to that idea? Now's the time to say, I can't live with that, etc. Okay. I'm seeing basically people seem like they can live with that change. So I'm going to say that Congress voted that we can change the rules now to, we're not doing pre-voting. Congress is the official meeting. We discuss it here. If you want your opinion, go to a Congress meeting. You get recorded. People have to listen to what you have to say. If you can't make that meeting because life happens, you still got 72 hours on the forum to go, whoa, I wasn't there. I can't believe y'all said this. Whoa. And if enough people do that, we'll come back for a revision. But if it's really only like, a couple people who are very passionate, the decision will stay. So we want to have a chance for revision. What we don't want is, I'm mad and we're going to go over this again. Okay. We've gotten through most everything. We're down to resolutions. So Jason has a point. Jason.
Thank you. Yeah, so for clarity, for the voting on the site for the resolutions that are currently being proposed. For a member to vote or, provide input, all they have to do is click on that issue, that resolution, and go down to the bottom and post in the comments, correct? And they could leave like a I vote yes or something, or a I vote no.
So I'm pulling up a resolution right now. It says I have to log in. I believe that's correct. Also, I also know that, so if you can see my post here, proposed resolution, you can either vote on it here directly or we'll fix that out. Right underneath here, you can comment. So I'm not logged in right at this minute, but all of you who are can comment and you could say yay or nay. This thing will automatically allow as many comments, but yes, it should have a voting feature built in. I'm not logged in. I don't want to shut the computer down to do that. But yes.
Just a quick question. What are the prohibitions of disabled people not being able to marry now?
Well, so let me do this. I'm supposed to stop on time. I'd like to stop the meeting now. However, you don't have to go anywhere. I will start talking about the 3 proposed resolutions, but it's the public comment period. So if anybody from the public shows up, they too can participate. So I'd like to stop the meeting now. We will call it into the meeting. You can go if you want, you don't have to. And then we will talk about the 3 proposed resolutions. And the reason I need to do this is because this is what Congress wants. Okay, so we're gonna stop the meeting on time. Okay, it is 12:29. The CALEXIT Congress meeting is officially ended. Congress members do not have to stay at all. You don't have to stay, you can go. However, we're gonna get into some awesome stuff. So this is the public comment period. Anybody from the public can comment and you can speak directly to the CALEXIT members. Basically, the 2 things that we're gonna talk about right now are the fact that there's $500. And so from here on out, we can start allocating funds for publicity projects. So not, pet projects, but publicity projects. Hey, I want to make a post saying that California would be great having its own Olympic team on surfing to raise awareness. Okay, well, we could spend maybe $200 in Facebook advertising on that post. Jason Wright also brought up the idea that maybe we could interview somebody. So we could hire a famous speaker for $100 or $300 or $200 to come and speak to us for half an hour. If that person's really famous, that might raise the profile of Congress and bring us all sorts of new members. So it's got to be publicity to raise CALEXIT, or it's got to be publicity to raise the profile of Congress. But now Congress has the ability, and I'm going to create a new section on the forum where we're going to keep an account of the money and what it was spent on. The 501c4 is coming, and that's going to be a lot of money, but it's not here yet. I want everybody to get into the practice of allocating funds. So I'm going to, really kind of go with just whatever the Congress says on the votes, but I just want you to know that as of today, there's $500. If anybody comes with a publicity project, or if any of you have publicity projects, we can start allocating some money, and I would like us to start having votes in the future. On top of that, Congress is going to start appointing resolutions. Resolutions are the official word of Congress, the YesCAL CALEXIT. So what's going on internationally, domestic taking stances on it. So getting into that, there are 3 resolutions that we proposed right at this minute. And let me cover the top 3. First, I'm going to do share screen. Okay, so if you go to the Congress, you can go to resolutions now under consideration, proposed resolutions. Let me show you that. So resolutions now under consideration. Here's the proposed resolutions. And again, to log in, click log in. And then I usually say I forgot my password. and then I click lost your password, it's going to send you an email. You will click on that email and reset your password. When you do that, it should seamlessly bring you in. You'll need to make 2 or 3 posts before you can start posting on your own automatically. So you'll make a post, it'll have to be up for review by the moderator and published. The reason that we do that is so that we get to know you, and it's a security feature so that we keep the crazies out. So come to log in, lost my password, receive the email, check your spam box, check your spam, click it, and then you can come in. So let's go back to the form. And here we go, resolutions now into consideration. So we have a lot of resolutions here. I will cover them all. There's 3 though that I think we should make up front. And here's the reason why. We're really talking about this Congress and what it stands for. The resolutions we issue are going to be big statements. So we need something big and bold and something that kind of slams how we have different values than America. So not all these resolutions here, I think, are great for our first ones out the gate, although I do think we should approve all of them eventually. So I'm just going to go through some of them. Proposed resolution, show support to eliminate discrimination against disabled Californians being able to marry. This idea was by Stephanie Kamari. Here's the format based upon the UN format. So CALEXIT Congress General Assembly. Sponsors, here's the person who's said it. Signatures, that would be us to approve it. The topic is a short description of what the idea is. This would be the resolution as it was proposed, and the date adopted by Congress would be when we vote on it. Now, when you do a UN resolution, you're supposed to go noting facts or recognizing this or reminding people on something. So you have your list of facts, and then you go to, okay, well, now that we know that's there, we condemn something, we remind people, we call for action, we X. So you're going to want to state fact, fact, fact. What is the issue? These are the facts. Then underneath that, you're going to go, now that we know the facts, then what are we doing about it? You can't leave it on, these are just facts. You have to support, call, remind, ask. And it can be, we want Californians to vote for this law. We want Californians to just know this is a horrible thing. We want the California government to condemn this action. So boilerplate here, who did it, why, what's it called, the way it was proposed, when it was adopted, then to the CALEXIT Congress, then your series of facts, then it's calling, and then you'll need to have the references underneath. And as you can see, the references are just the title of the article and then the link. And that's so everybody can find it and see what's going on. So this resolution just says, noting that marriage equality is a California value, as Californians fought for the first LGBTQ people being able to be married under Gavin Newsom against federal law, I would remind everyone. Noting that the federal IRS agency punishes people who are disabled by removing their benefits if they get married. Noting that California routinely loses its rights because of the laws by the federal government. California calls on Californians to show support for the disabled community and condemn the federal Internal Revenue Service policy of discriminating against the community, which represents 23% of California's population. So you got to tie it back to California. Why are we talking about this? How does this reflect our values? Well, our values are to support diversity. The disabled community is 23% of us, and we want to make sure that nobody is discriminated against. So that's why we're talking about this. As I understand this resolution, and I'm not going to do a long debate, this is just covering the resolutions briefly. If you are disabled and you get married, they say, oh, your marriage partner is now the person who's going to take care of you, so you don't need any benefits from Social Security. And what the disabled community is saying is, we need all the benefits we get from Social Security disability, and we need help from our partner. We barely make it on what we get from the IRS for disability. And when you
Is
get
this
married,
California state law or from the IRS?
my understanding is it is the IRS. Again, I don't want to get into this. Yeah, my understanding is the IRS, but you can go and look into it. So we'll be talking about this week. Here's another resolution. Okay. Let me show this one. And please ask questions. Robert, everybody, if you got questions. Here's another resolution. Federal courts are an existential threat to California lives. Yes, Professor Williams.
Before you get into that, I would make another point about mentally disabled people. If they are institutionalized, those institutions routinely deny them the right to have any kind of sexual relationship, and so it's you know, a direct violation of human rights.
Okay, thank you. And this is it. I want you all to propose your resolutions. I'm just showing you how to do it. So if you're like, this is an issue, that's an issue, you need to get your references and you need to follow this format, and then you can start directly proposing this, and we'll let the Congress choose. So here's the second one, proposed resolution in caps. What is it basically saying? The federal courts are a threat to Californians' safety. So why should I care? CALEXIT Congress, the sponsor is me. Signatures will be you all once it's approved. Here's the topic. Call for Californians to recognize that the federal courts will strike down California laws that keep our people alive. This was the second resolution proposed in the year 2021, and it was adopted by Congress on whatever date we get to it. So this one's a little bit better. Reminding everyone in California that we saw the American federal court system has been made into dominantly under the influence of conservative judges. So the US Supreme Court and the Ninth Circuit have both gone super conservative. Same thing, reminding the Ninth Circuit. So there's no chance to participate in a meaningful manner because the courts have become conservative for the first time in like 50 years. And so they're super hardcore against California progressive laws at both the Ninth Circuit and then the Supreme Court above that, creating a two-enveloped layer blocking our progressive laws and striking them down. The police decision by Professor Walter Williams, when it's decided by the courts, would go in here. Noting that the Ninth Circuit Court specifically struck down a law that designed to keep Californians safe from getting shot by limiting high-capacity magazines. So we had that gun shooting in Gilroy where a lot of people got killed. We said, well, we don't want you to have a full-on automatic clip because people die. And then the Ninth Circuit Court, federal court, struck down that law. So we can't do the main thing that we wanted to do to prevent mass shootings here by federal government. End of story. So guess there's going to be more shootings and people getting killed, and you can't do anything about it, California. See how that directly relates to why we're talking about CalExit? Then noting that the Supreme Court struck down a recent law designed to keep Californians alive from the coronavirus and said that we cannot stop everybody from going into mass gatherings. That's going to get people killed. So that's the Supreme Court and the Ninth Circuit, super conservative, striking down our laws. And see how I broke down everything, you know, so it's not run-on sentences. It's one point, second point, third point, specific example, specific example. Then call to action. Calls for Californians to understand that clearly the federal court system represents a threat to Californians' ability to literally save our lives. So we could have stronger wording, but you get the format. Break it down into basic facts, follow this format. And I'll give you a tip. You base it off your references. You've got to have references. We're not doing the, I saw this somewhere. That don't work. So you can all do this. See, I wrote out the name of the reference. I just copied off the link. I just copied what the link says and posted it right there. Here's the link. Here's 2 quotes from the article. That took me 5 minutes, folks. It's not rocket science. Anybody could do this. Start with your references. Make sure they're there. Otherwise, we have to have them. That's one resolution. Here's another one. This was proposed by Darren Brown. Show support for Californians who are Sikh and reject ethnic nationalism laws, which aren't part of California. So there's the Sikh people in India are very well connected to the Sikh people here in California. California supports diversity. We love our Sikh people, like the Jews and the Iranians and the Mexicans and the Filipinos. They are our culture. They come here with their culture. They make our culture a blended place. It's beautiful. We love the Sikh people. They are California culture. Many of them are connected to the Sikhs in India. Recently, India has been repressing the Sikhs. The government of India is a Hindu nationalist front. The Sikhs are not Hindus. The government is attempting to destroy their ability to feed themselves and own their own businesses, which should hopefully, according to the Indian government, force them to leave, in effect, depopulating India of the Sikhs. This is called a ethnic migration or forced expulsion. It's one of the top war crimes under international law. You're basically trying to get rid of an entire ethnic group. So India is not shooting at them, but it's basically wiping out their ability to survive with independence as they've known it for hundreds of years. And everybody knows this is because Modi is a nationalist. So nationalism is against California values. Protecting for the Sikhs is a California value. So we call on Californians to show support for them. You can take a look at that. Here's the references. Darren already gave me all the references. I just packaged it up. So here's another resolution. This one I made personally. Proposed resolution: American government has shown a preference for placing children in cages who come from the southern border across many administrations and both political parties. Reminding everyone in California that we saw the American federal government under the Trump presidency support separating Latino children from their parents and placing them in cages. Reminding everybody in California that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez notified the world that this practice was on the same moral level with concentration camps during World War II. Noting that recently the American federal government under the Biden administration has reopened the worst offending border camp with the highest death rate of Latinos and the highest amount of children in cages, and have placed them back into cages they're calling containers. Noting that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who brought our attention to this horrible Nazi-style death camp, has been reopened by the Biden administration. And she straight up said, not cool, not okay. You're doing the same thing, or it's too damn close to what Trump did. Reminding everyone in California that Joe Biden was a key architect, along with Barack Obama, of creating and inventing the system of separating children from their parents and putting them in cages. Yes, they started it. And then they criticized Trump for doing it. And then Joe Biden went right back to doing it himself. So that sounds like multiple administrations and multiple parties are okay with brown-skinned Latino children being separated from their parents and treated like bovine animals. We would call on the California government to understand clearly that both political parties in America, over many years and many presidencies, believe that Latinos are basically a subhuman species, and it's okay to treat them not like humans with dignity, but like animals by depriving them of partnership with their parents and placing them in cyclone fence cages like we do hogs and horses. So I'll leave that to you to take a look at. We're also going to be proposing a resolution. I don't have it at 1 second. Resolution today that I'd like the Congress to hear, where we're going to talk about the relief checks. So the relief checks have come out, and I still need to package it, but basically it go like this. Reminding everybody that the Donald Trump administration was horrible for Californians. Reminding everybody that the Biden administration said they were going to be completely different. Reminding everybody that the Biden administration and the Democrats said, if you vote us in, we're going to take care of you the way that Donald Trump wouldn't. And then reminding people that they literally said you'll get a $2,000 check. And then they walked that back to $1,400 after they said $2,000. Yes, that's a lie. Yes, they misled you. Yes, that's well documented. So you don't get $2,000 with the Democrats in charge. You get $1,400, which is not what they said. Additionally, you don't get checks quickly. They're going to come in a month to 3 months. You were promised immediate relief and $2,000. Both of those are not working out, and that's with the Democrats in charge. So additionally, as pointed out by research by Jason Wright, that $2,000 check provides rent for 3 months for the average American state, about 45 states. In California, it doesn't even provide rent for 1 month. So the relief stimulus package was not what they promised. It was less than what they said. It was not quick like they promised. It's coming later, which is not good. Additionally, it don't do a whole lot for Californians at all, but it helps out 45 other states. So that's a horrible package, or what I like to call the worst insurance plan you've ever heard of. Yes, Professor Williams.
Just a procedural thing. I think it would be better in terms of people reading these texts if you would just, you don't need to say reminding people or this is, I forgot the wording, but you could eliminate those first words right at the beginning of each part of the resolution. And that would make it easier reading for people who are not familiar with it. You don't need to say all that.
I'll leave it to you to pick the words. The UN resolution process determines that you do have to use a basically starter word. So reminding was just one. There's like 30 different options. People can pick whatever they want.
Yeah.
So, okay. Those are the resolutions. I would like Congress's support on approving the resolutions on the federal courts are an existential threat against California lives. The allowance of Latino children in cages across multiple administrations is against California values. And the stimulus check that's supposed to save us, you said Trump's gone, Democrats are in charge, California gets everything it wants. We were told 2000, you walked that back. We were told right away, you walked that back. And this don't even help rent for 1 month in a place you know has a housing crisis and a homeless issue. Why aren't you fixing our homeless issue? So I would like Congress's permission to approve those 3 resolutions. I'll leave it up for the next 3 days. Please go to the forum and participate. But I'm going to be calling all of you. You don't have to. But I think that starting Congress off and saying, wow, look at these resolutions. We condemned the federal government for not following California values. We condemned the federal government for not helping California in a crisis. And we condemned the federal court system for not allowing us to support our lives. So when people ask, why are you supporting CalExit? Or if you don't support CalExit, why do you even think it's worth having this conversation? We literally just explained it to you. That's power. Why does Congress exist? Look at the issues they're handling. I would ask everybody to please consider these top 3 resolutions for approval as our first 3, and then we could approve more on there. I'd also remind everybody you could go to the forum and propose your own resolution. I'm going to stop there. We have about 10 minutes left. I'll turn it over to Congress about any questions they have on resolutions for the final remaining part of the show. Any questions from Congress about resolutions? Professor.
Sorry if other people have.
No, nobody did. Nobody did. Everybody can raise their hand. Go for it.
Okay. I would suggest that we frame the resolutions in a broader sense. For example, using the Sikh resolution, that we should say that, you know, we consider it opposite of California values for the ethnic cleansing or ethnic migration, and then use the Sikhs as an example, use, you know, other groups around the world as examples. So it's more universal and more comprehensive while still addressing the particular issue. Because if we have a resolution supporting Sikhs, then other groups might say, oh, well, they didn't have a resolution on my group, so therefore they must not care about us. But if we make it more general and then give examples of, you know, here's the horrible things that are happening to the Sikhs, and then some other examples in other countries, I think that would be more comprehensive.
Well, you had a couple thumbs up, so a couple people liked what you were saying. I would say go to the resolution there and put that in the comments. So you can say everything you said right there on that exact resolution. I'll put up that exact page in the chat. All I want to say is, folks, you're all saying brilliant stuff. We just got to get it on the forum. And I don't think that's going to happen in a day. I think it'll take us a little bit of time to get everybody on there, but many of you are coming to me and saying, this is a great idea. This is a great idea. And I love you all. And you're right. I just want to direct that energy into the forum. But all of you, I got to tell you, 5 of you came away and were like, dude, I read this article. It said this, this, and that. We need to take a stance for this because we're Californians and it's not okay. Do you know how big my heart got? I mean, many of you were going, this isn't Californian. I remember Professor Williams going, I read this article on the police and they're harassing minorities and that's not a California value. And I was like, calm down, dude, I get it. We'll propose this Sunday. So love the passion. You're all doing it. Some of you are really way out ahead of me, Jason and the professor. I mean, I struggle to keep up, but that's it. You're going to see stuff, international issues, go to Robert Stark. Domestic issues, go to Jason Wright. And I'll tell you what and some of the committee videos are out. The committee heads are not your boss. They're not a brutal dictator. They're a moderator. They're there to help you package your ideas. They're also there to make sure we don't have silly ideas proposed to the Congress, but they're really there to help you. So if you have ideas, go to the committee, or you can email them if you can't make the meeting and have them work with you. That's what the committees are there for. This is not an organization of, I have an idea and someone tells you that's stupid, shut it down. We don't do that here. This is you have an idea, we're at least going to be quiet if we're negative, or we're going to help you get it done. So I know you all have resolutions, and we want to start pumping these out every week. I cannot emphasize how much power is being handed over to you all. You could literally get, you have an issue, you want Californians to be seen taking this stance. You get it through the committees, you get Congress to approve it. We're going to post it to 160,000 people. And then we're going to start promoting it to 400 reporters as the official stance of yes. That means you alone have the ability, if you follow the proper rules, to really influence Californians on an issue the way you think it should be done. But you got to jump in. You got to go to the forum, or you got to come here to Congress. Jason.
Yeah, so to back up what you're saying there, I'll lead the dominoes in reverse. Yes, California is all about furthering the cause through gathering, more understanding, more support, getting more people talking and learning, right? We do this by having increased productivity. People take note when they see a very high level of productivity. The place where that productivity gets put together, stirred up and brewed, so to speak, that's the committees. So you go to the committee to brew up this magical brew, and then that domino falls and hits the next one, which increases our productivity. We now have something to present. We're presenting it, we're voting on it, we're doing things. That domino falls. People take note. They start talking about CalExit more. They start talking about the CalExit Congress. They start talking about what is it that these people are onto that the United States seems to have just totally overlooked. That's winning.
That's winning. That's winning. Yeah, Professor.
I don't mean to monopolize comments here.
No. Hey, folks, if you want to talk, raise your hand or put the little raised up hand or go to the chat and say, let me talk. But if you don't do that, I'm going to call on people who do talk because I'm assuming you're cool listening. If you want to jump in, I will call on you. Just raise your hand, Professor.
Okay, thank you. I think on international issues, we have to be very careful how we word things, because one of the major objections to the United States government that I and many others have is that the United States government routinely lectures other countries about violations of human rights, when in fact the United States government itself is a major violator of human rights around the world. And so we don't want to do the same thing. We don't want to say, oh, look, we're wonderful, we're high and mighty, and we condemn, this other country. I think we should get away from that. We should be the opposite of what the US government does in that regard. So let's take the Sikh example. we would word it in the way, and this is off the top of my head, and other people might have different modifications, but I would say California's values include welcoming immigrants, and we oppose discrimination against people. And here's an example of what the Sikhs are suffering in India. And here are other examples in other countries. And we welcome them. Okay, so the focus is on what California is doing rather than putting this big, condemnation on this government or that government. I think an independent California should take a neutral stance internationally, that we should, I think the good model is Ecuador, where they just said, we're not participating in any military exercise or coalition in the world because we want to govern our own country and we let other people take care of the things in their countries. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't take a stand, but the stand would be in the context of, say, for example, a California representative making motions to the United Nations. So then the United Nations could vote on things and be able to, make decisions about what to condemn or accept. And the onus is not on us, because one of our values is that we want to trade with everybody. We want to have economic progress with everybody. We want to be friendly with everybody. We don't want to be a military interventionist that goes around, sending the California Marines to wherever around the world, which is a major problem of the United States. And so we want to very much distinguish ourselves from the United States in this particular regard. It doesn't mean that we can't say, we're against ethnic cleansing or ethnic discrimination, and we welcome people. If you have a problem in your country, come to California. So that should be our stance, rather than just saying a particular issue and we come out, we're high and mighty and we can go and condemn other people. I have lived in other countries for a number of years, and I've seen how the American propaganda machine and the media frames it in a way that makes it look like, this is a horrible thing that happened in that other country. But when you're in that other country, you see, no, that's not the reality at all. And the United States routinely does this. We need to be very different from that.
Okay. I got to say, that's why we had the Congress. Did y'all see what happened? I have a slightly different opinion than the professor, but guess what? We're having high-level debate. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the professor's wrong. I don't know. You guys determine it, but now we're actually having that level of debate. Do you see this as winning? Right? So we're not all going to agree. Great. But there isn't any other CalExit organization that's having this level of high-level strategy and debate. I mean, that's why I brought Hannah back to do a presentation, like high-level strategy, high-level debate, and then a product. These are the kind of debates that I want to have. We're doing it. This is success. And I just wanted to point out, I got a big smile. I have a slightly different opinion than the professor, but I love that we're debating and that it's smart people disagreeing on what's the best way to get media publicity. That's called winning, folks. So, Professor, I love you. Thank you. Thank you.
You too.
I'm going to leave it there. Okay, Jason, real quick, I do want to end on time. It's 1:01, so if it can be in 1 minute, Jason Wright.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when we're operating at a very high level, it's very hard for someone on the outside looking in to view us as anything other than operating at a very high level. If we operate at a low level, people on the outside looking in are going to see those people operate at a very low level of productivity and efficiency and all of that, yada, yada. So, yeah.
Backing up what Jason said, we've been at this about 4.5 weeks. We have an entire exhaustive set of rules designed by you. We voted in those rules through democracy. We've had 7 meetings. We've had 3 different other foreign groups come and speak to the Congress. We've launched a 501c4. We're allocating funds. We're discussing resolutions. We're having debates on resolutions. We have 4 different committees formed. We have committee meetings every single night of the week for the first 3. We have 7 different committee videos already done. We had somebody reach out to the indigenous. We had somebody go and speak on the recall debate, which got us some attention and we did very well on, and everybody said we looked professional. We got to speak at a think tank, California Forward, and influence their opinion on things. We also had a high profile podcast come on board. And now we're having super high level debates on resolutions. So, and then we just had a presentation today on a video series that there's nothing like that before. Like nobody's attacking California history. So I need to be a little bit boring and point out to you that this is winning. This is what winning looks like. 4.5 weeks, we got 43 people in line with rules and a budget and proposing resolutions and a forum and 4 different publicity projects and a rule set, and everybody's following along. And we look professional every time we get going. And we're reaching out to 3 different known separatist groups. So, wow. Keep the pressure up. We're going to constantly get better. Obviously, I made some mistakes today. I'll get better, but we're all going to get better. We're going to take this as far as we possibly can. I'm going to stop there. I will leave the channel up for another hour for random discussion, but it's not going to be recording. Let me try to do this right with the ending sequence. I'm going to try to do this. Okay. That is the end of the show.